Home Again is a film that looks at the story of three Jamaican deportees. They're from the US, UK, and Canada, and it's their lives once they hit the ground running. They were born in Jamaica, but they grew up abroad, from the US, UK, and Canada. So it's as if they kind of never went to Jamaica, or they didn't grow up there, so they don't know the island at all. So that when they hit the ground running in Jamaica, they're looking at an island that they don't know, and they're forced to survive. Our personal collection, Jen Holness, who's the co-writer and the producer of the movie, as well as my wife. She grew up with a guy who had been deported, and that was the beginning of our dealing with this story. We were sitting around the breakfast table and reading the newspaper, and found the obituary of her friend who had been deported, who grew up in Canada. He came to Canada when he was 6 from Jamaica, and then he grew up and then was subsequently deported after running afoul of the law. And then he was murdered, and so that was our personal interaction with the story. We went down to Jamaica in 2005, and then we interviewed over 40 deportees, and then from that, hearing guys who grew up like in Scarborough, like me, right? And so they were like talking about Fairview Mall, they're talking about Eden Center, they're talking about I was a Sunshine Boy, they're things of that nature. So they're talking about the X, and it was like one guy even saying like, let's go to the X, like he's saying that jingle. And I was like, whoa, these guys are Canadian, they are Jamaican, or sorry, they are American, they are British. So we were like, okay, there's something wrong here. And so we thought, sometimes again, this could be a death sentence, like in the case of Jen's friend. So we thought, there's something not right here, so let's look at this issue. So in talking with these guys, and again some girls, brought together these characters, made composite characters, and made a fictional drama based on the lives of these deportees. I think that's a very interesting question, because the idea of home is something that, like, especially with deportees, they feel very, very deeply. They carry home with them. So home is a memory, and it's kind of frozen, and it's intact, but it's a memory in the back of their mind. So when you're talking to somebody who let's say is from Scarborough, for example, who's been deported to Jamaica, when I was speaking to him, his accent began to change, it began to mirror mine, it began to become, I became home for him. All his references were flooding back. There were people who were spontaneously kind of bursting into tears, because we would come and sort of provoke this response, because home for them came flooding back. Home was something that they had suppressed a long time ago, because they were mourning it, because they could never go back to where they felt was home. And so this was something that caused them great pain, because again, they had to suppress it. Because for us, I mean, we're living here, this is our home. And so it's easy for us. We don't even give it a second thought. It's our familiar smells. It's our familiar streets. It's a coffee shop where you go to. I mean, that's home for us. But when you're sort of taken out of context and brought somewhere else, you don't have it. You've got to keep it inside, and then you've got to also create something new in your environment. But if you're living on the streets in Jamaica, it's tough. It's tough to come up with home. You're always writing with people in mind and hoping that eventually it begins to hit. So I had some, in terms of like Tatyana, she was like, when we were redrafting Marva towards the latter stages, somebody mentioned Tatyana Ali, and I was like, wow, okay, that would be amazing if we could get her. And so we began to pursue her. And then so ultimately we got her. And then so it was a year prior to the actual filming, we'd actually got her on board. So we began the redrafting process to shape it in a way for her. Gave her resources to work with to begin to fashion a Jamaican dialect, the Jamaican accent. She's only supposed to adopt it in a little small part, but we needed to get her prepped to even just to begin hearing it, to begin to build that character. So when you're given the opportunity to work with great actors, you got to rise to the task and really like begin to shape the material for them, for their strengths, and to also push them, you know, into to actually take on something on a deeper level. I mean, she's known for her comedy, but this is a dramatic role. So we really try to create it and push it so that she could do it. I think that when your audience is going to see Home Again, they're going to see a film about the human condition. And I think that the question is, what would you do to survive? Taken out of context and dropped somewhere else where you're unfamiliar. And I think that's really what it's all about. Like, the human condition is, we're always full of hope. We're always full of potential. And the idea is that you really understand who you are if you're stripped away of all identity, if you're stripped away of all sort of creature comforts on it, all that kind of stuff. That's who you find out who you are. So I would say, yeah, I mean, you're going to see something exciting, you see something adventurous, you're going to see something with amazing music, amazing performances, and something that really challenges your soul. So that's what I hope and I believe the audiences will find with Home Again. I think two things. Like, I think personally is like, don't be afraid of being trained. So go and get some training, whether it be at like any of the, you know, community colleges or universities that we have, continuing education. Don't be afraid of being trained. It's going to challenge what you know about yourself and about the work. I think that I encourage people to get trained, but also I say don't let anybody define you, you know, other than you. And I think that as a black man, I had to find who I was. In terms of the type of stories I want to tell. I'm not trying to be pigeonholed in anything, but I want to define who I am and to tell the world who I am and make my mark in the world. And I think that anybody out there should do the same for themselves. And again, like, just be yourself and don't let anybody tell you who you are. That's what I would say.